Thank you everyone for joining. My name is Tim Babkin. I'm International Sales Manager at Saydat. I'm nowadays in Helsinki. I believe all of us are located in different geographies. But we have really, when we met with Michael a couple of weeks ago, we end up on talking one topic that, is it time to wait or act? Because all this uncertain situation and really crisis situation is really affecting everyone. It doesn't matter, are you running business or you're a customer or you're just a consumer or whoever, it affects everyone. It affects kids, it affects adults. But what we have to know that it's probably situation is start to be constant. And we end up talking with Michael about this topic, realize that we can't stop. We can't get stressed every time when things start to happen this way. So we decided we probably should talk about it. And since Michael is really interesting person and has great knowledge about corporate strategy and business strategies and also hands-on experience in running business, so I think he's really great person to join this conversation. So I could give you some small preview of Michael's background. So we are pleased and honored to have Michael Hoffman with us. So Michael has degree from the University of South California, Arizona State, and the University of Lund in Sweden. Actually, very interesting fact that Michael is a former symphony orchestra conductor. But later he made transition to executive coaching, and at the same time he started his own company, which is aiming to make email productivity better, called Lean Mail, back in 2007. 15 years later, Michael is a highly regarded executive coach and mentor for top leaders in organizations around the world. His company, Lean Mail, has successfully enabled thousands of Outlook users to finally get control over their inbox. I believe everyone starts to feel something about when I talk about email efficiency in hundreds of companies on 6 continents. Michael recently did a webinar with David Allen, and the author of Getting Things Done. I actually have read this book. So we are excited to gain his insights into education, efficiency, and tools. So hi, Michael, and welcome to my sales timeout.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you for such a nice introduction.
Yeah, maybe a couple of words about me. So why it's sales timeout? Because my background actually lays in professional basketball. So I used to be professional basketball for many, many years, and I really feel that there is so much in common between sports and sales or business. It's really there is so many parallels, and it's really not the first webinar. In fact, it's third one. And what I'm finding, it's quite much of things related to business. You can actually reflect the same things done in sport. So that's also the reason why it's timeout, because we have situation with which we have to deal somehow. So same as in basketball, we just take time out, have conversation how we should act in the future. So that's what we'll find out, how to act in this crisis situation, how businesses should run their processes, what they have to invest on to get the best outcome later. So yeah, maybe we could jump to the first question. Michael, what is new normal? What's your feeling?
The new normal.
Yeah.
Probably the new normal is that anything goes. I think that we basically throw out a lot of the architecture that we've had previously, a lot of social norms. I mean, we have all of this politics. We have a war going on, COVID, everything has changed. And I think it would be a mistake to think that things will ever go back to what we could consider normal. I think we're headed off into uncharted territory. I think that the fact that we're remote working is probably very helpful, that we've already started that journey, because I think that with climate change, with so many things happening, that the new normal is really maybe the abnormal, right? The opposite of normal. We could think of dress code. I'm having meetings with guys in t-shirts and guys in ties, and it really doesn't matter anymore. So I guess that's it. The new normal is very difficult to put your finger on, and I think you have to get used to change. Change is the new normal.
Yeah, I definitely think so, and I also like thinking about recent couple of years, and these drivers actually of transition and progress in some ways, they were actually crisis situations. Like if we think back on 2019 and 2019, beginning of 2020, when we all got COVID, we all were stressed. Okay, how are we gonna act? What we should do? How are we gonna run our sales? Do I know how to run sales? Like I can't meet people online anymore, or sorry, online, face to face. Online, okay, what is this? Like, how I can build trust having online meetings? We had so many questions, and it kind of slowed down all of us. It paused sales processes for many companies. Actually, quite many companies were not able to make this digital sales transition, and they were just like we were thrown away from the market by more flexible and fast-changing companies. And like what we learned that actually it's possible to act. Economy actually accelerated, like even like over results or performance like what we had before COVID. So it was possible to innovate, possible to make transition and so on. But now we face situations, there is new threat, there is war. And it's also like I'm taking care of sales. So I also like realize that things slowing down. People start to think, okay, like let's talk in May, let's talk in somewhere else. Like it's really like we need this tool, like really, but we decided to, it's so uncertain situation. We don't know how to act. Let's take pause. Why?
So I'm sorry, what was the end question there?
Yeah, it was kind of more not a question, but my next question to you is like thinking about this global crisis situation. What strategic investment businesses and processes would have the best return of investments? So actually what to do now to get as a winner from this situation in the future?
Well, you just mentioned trust before, and I think that in order to gain trust, first of all, trust has to do with relationships, and there's nothing efficient about a relationship. You can't speed up relationships that much, right? So you can't all of a sudden figure out some very efficient way to gain trust. You can figure out effective ways of gaining trust, but efficiency is very difficult in this area. So, I think one of the things is consistency. I think consistency is extremely important, that you have clear values and that you follow those values and make sure that, for instance, showing up to meetings on time, not having excuses, and also not trying to go for the big deals, but go for things that will produce relationships. Now, in terms of the kinds of, I guess, business processes that would have the best ROI, we still go back to basics like low-hanging fruit, and looking at your processes to reduce waste and focus on value, but also innovation. And when I talk about innovation, I'm talking about something very different from improvement. So innovation is a big step from where you are, whereas improvement is just gradually getting better. And I don't think that today improvements are going to cut it alone. I think it's important that we understand that in order to innovate, we're going to have to do some complete changes and not be afraid of taking big steps in order to do that.
Okay, yeah, I totally agree with you. But if you have to come to actually to the practical part, so like thinking about the circumstances now, like if you think about, okay, let's not make it complicated. Let's make it two things. Where you should invest, to what kind of processes, like, or what kind of domains, like if you think about company and operations of company, where actually would be the best, like investment of your resources would come now to get the best later?
Well, I think that's a really tough question without knowing the actual company that you're working with. But one of the things that you can look at is, are you competitive, right? And in places where you aren't competitive and need to be competitive, that's where you should be putting a lot of your resources. Tim, you and I were talking earlier about how things are changing, and I'm speaking about technology today. and how some companies are still in previous decades. We were talking about presentations, since you're in the presentation business, and I was saying that what did we use before PowerPoint? And I struggle with that, and I actually looked it up, and we were using flip charts. There was nothing really before PowerPoint. And then what did we use after PowerPoint? And basically, the biggest company that I know about is Prezi, but Teams has already eclipsed that by you being well. Let me say this, that they did innovate PowerPoint to a certain degree, but then they kind of sat on their laurels, and then you at SciDot come along and create something that is a huge innovation over PowerPoint in the ability to centralize the information, so that when you are sending out links to your presentations, you can upgrade them. The information doesn't get old, right? So that's a huge innovation. But a lot of companies are still back in PowerPointville, right? And in my own domain in email, if we look at what did we have before Outlook, we had MS Mail, the precursor to Outlook, and then after Outlook, and think that Outlook came out in the, I guess, 87 or so, maybe it was the 90s. What came after Outlook? Well, Getting Things Done, David Allen's Getting Things Done was a way of working within Outlook. We came out, Leanmail came out in 2007, and totally changed the map on how to work in email. But we don't have millions of users, so that means that of the 400 million users in Outlook, a clear majority are still back in the 90s in the way they're working. So getting back to your question, innovating the places where you need to be competitive, where you're spending a large portion of your day, email, presentations, I would say these are great places to get some ROI.
Yeah, I think it's really a great idea. And I think I would make it even broader. Basically, making processes more efficient. It's something what will really make your great impact in the long run.
Well, since you mentioned that, I want to point out that I work a lot with companies in mind mapping. Most of the companies that I work with actually haven't used mind mapping, digital mind mapping, that is, ever before, which is so surprising to me, since mind mapping has been around for maybe 2 decades now. Okay, it was a little bit difficult, a little bit before its time, but today mind mapping is so easy to use, and I'm just so surprised that people aren't using that in order to map out and visualize their processes. People will have these big CRM systems, but they have no way to see how their CRMs can be optimized, how their processes can be optimized. And instead, they're using very clunky software like Visio. And Visio looks beautiful, but very difficult to actually make changes within your teams on the fly on a regular basis. And if you can't do that, then you're really missing out on 90% of the whole reason to use this kind of software, whether it's diagram or mind mapping software. So I always opt for the mind mapping. And then if you want to make something very static at the end of the day, you can always do that from a mind map to a Visio type of illustration. But so I think mind mapping is something that people need to start to take a look at. I think we use mind mapping at least 20% of our day. So
yeah, I think it's also kind of leads me to the idea that it's actually not everyone knows about this type of technique. So I think that actually education could be one more thing what we have to really concentrate now. Is actually investing in people. Because these people will actually make innovations. They have to know about the existing, of something else than most typical things. Like if you think about even mind mapping, what kind of tools you could use for that? What we make it very easy, or actually the concept of mind mapping and what results it would give. So actually education, and also letting people to kind of understand how they can find this like source information. And it's time to change. We can't be same as like we were 10 years ago. Like especially I think it comes to kind of maybe more traditional businesses. Like they have to kind of go further. So I think like maybe education could be one more driver of innovation.
Absolutely. And I think actually, we complain a lot about COVID, and we have a lot to complain about. But at the same time, COVID has also forced us into doing more things online, and especially education, right? I mean, even I had been working at the the graduate school here, they were forced to put a lot of their courses online and so on. And so, online learning is opening up so many doors. So I think that that's been one positive thing about that. And so it used to be that you graduated from a college or a grad school, and then that was kind of it. I mean, you did some courses, you got some accreditations, but it wasn't like a daily thing. Today, there's so many possibilities for you to extend your education. And I think that's very exciting. And also the possibility of getting coaching. And still, that's still very slow, I would say. Still, coaching is for the executives, right? I mean, pretty much everybody that I coach today is a top executive in a company. And it's such a shame that we're not investing more coaching time for lower level executives and managers and so on, because it makes such a difference in everybody's lives. And you don't have to have that many coaching sessions actually for that investment to pay off.
Yeah, I think it's really a good point. And I think it's also like by educating your executives, you give them idea that they have to educate their teams. So it's kind of like sort of a chain reaction probably.
Well, you're making a really good point, because when I'm coaching my executives, basically what I'm doing is I'm teaching them to be a coach.
Yeah, exactly. Leaders. Yeah, basically
they can pass that down the line. But that can you can have interventions at any point in that line.
Yeah, I think like from my if you take like as you mentioned your experience with executives, like with coaching, like if you think about my experience like on daily basis of making sales, I already mentioned it a bit earlier that quite many companies have to think, okay, like we should like kind of stop and wait. Okay, like let's kind of like we really need this tool, but let's talk in May, and okay, like we probably let's take it in Q3. Like even so, there is direct fit and so on, but I kind of feel I'm gonna ask, so what is the reason for that? Because you just said it, like we really need it. So is it kind of like not that big pain for you? So no, it's really a big pain, but we kind of like we decided like to save money, to kind of save our budgets because we don't know how we're gonna act. We already lost part of our market, so. And they start to kind of hesitate to make an action. And like we just had lunch with our neighbor company, and they said like it's same for them happening. I was thinking maybe it's only for me, but no. Like what I was talking like it's for quite many companies. What they feel, because like what we sell basically sales enabler tool. So it makes like basically companies start to save money on sales, on the situation when they are losing market. So I totally understand you're probably like not good idea to hire more people, like many people like at the moment. But what's my feeling? You have to make your sales processes more efficient, more effective. So basically, with the same sales headcount, you can get more results, and this comes through innovation. So I just kind of making this parallel. So it's really all the things are very important, and you don't have to hesitate. You have to act. Because like if other company who is your competitor will act while you're hesitating, they will take your customers, they will take your share of your market. And when everyone would understand, okay, this is new normal, we can still make business, even there is a war, it should be done. Like we should run our economy, we can stop our economy. Because if we stop our economy, everything will collapse. So, and anyway, the main driver for every company is sales. Sales bring money, sales bring new tools for other companies and so on. So it's really good idea to actually continue your sales process, continue to innovate your sales process, make it better, make it stronger, and make basically you as a company stronger in your market?
Yeah. So, and I'm thinking now of your company selling to another company. What do you do in order to prevent them from just saying, hey, we have to wait until the war is over, or we have to wait until COVID is over, or we have to wait until X is over, right? How do you deal with those types of situations? Well, to some degree, some of that should have been dealt with previously, or there shouldn't be this event that happens that, okay, are we ready to go with this deal? There are ways in order to make any kind of sales process a lot less cut up into sections, and instead create consistency in the process so that it doesn't become this one decision-making moment. Another thing is making sure that you have the right decision makers early on in the process, because if you don't have the relationship with them, then it's much easier for them to just say no if they don't know who you are. If you don't have that relationship, it becomes very difficult. I would say, though, that if a company is running into the situation where the purchaser is saying, hey, we have to wait until next year or so on, then perhaps the value proposition hasn't been made clear enough. Perhaps the focus has been more on the sale than on the value. And in working together with the company that you're selling to, in order to increase the understanding of the value of what it is that you're bringing, and that can be done in all kinds of ways, in freemium, in giving free training, just finding ways in which you can get your product in their hands so they can start to use it, so that it's less of a pill, less of a vitamin and more of a pill. I know for us, a big breakthrough for us was to give away our first training for free, because we know with our product, because it is an innovation, not just an improvement. There's the famous line from Henry Ford where he said, if I asked people what they wanted, they would have asked for a faster horse. And what he's alluding to is the fact that people just can't imagine innovation. That's why it's called innovation. And if you're just talking about your innovative product and not having people actually work with it, they're missing 90% of what you're talking about. So they don't perceive the value proposition. So in some way, as soon as possible, you have to get it into their hands, get through the change management of whatever you're providing, get them to really understand how valuable your product is. Then you have a chance. And you can do a lot of that work before the sale, right? Before you say, okay, how many of these do you want? How many widgets do you want? And I think, so having also the courage to extend yourself to the point where you're investing in your customer before they're willing to invest in you, I think this is also quite important. So you have to be strategic in who you're speaking with, speak with the right people, already start getting value in there, and then you're going to close those deals if you have a great product.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with you. And I think like on this way, of course, like, every situation can just run into this type of issue, but like you're totally right. The way how you communicate your value proposition is very important. And again, like on some way, your sales materials come crucial in that. How you actually use them for communicating your value, how efficient them, and can they actually help you to run sales. But like we run out of time, so I will give you a last question, and then we could get questions from the audience. So how these investments or impact of investments could be measured? How do you think?
Well, I guess, the top and bottom lines are obviously important. We should be looking at that. But they only tell really part of the story. I think a lot of companies are very quick to cut out the sorry, a lot of companies are quick to cut out training and development, for instance. And I think that's a huge mistake if it can possibly be avoided. I think that, first of all, training and development is very easy to cut out because it's, a phone call basically, or maybe not a phone call, depending on the size of the company, but it is not, it can be made in a decision. And the thing is, training and development is usually a very small part of the budget, but it's easy. And I think that a lot of companies don't realize that by cutting that out, you're also cutting out a lot of other things, because, if you think about the top reasons why people come to companies, they're number one, it's opportunities for career progression. Number two, it's going to be salary. But number three, it is, getting development. It's getting that training. And so if you cut out the training and development and giving them new tools and helping them learn these tools, you're also saying, hey, we're also limiting your opportunities for career growth. And so, those are two strikes right there. So, I think making sure that you're constantly measuring the results of increasing your technology and sales, looking at the impact that those things have is also very important.
Yeah, I really think, like, in some way, actually, just to summarize, your company team kind of, what is it, correct word, flow. So if people stay in your company, it means that they actually, like, things are on place. Like, here is in development, here is in tools, especially I think for salespeople. It's so important, like, it's actually easy to sell or not. Are you providing me tools which help me to get results for you, first of all? Of course, for me, it's like secondary. I will get salary, I will get provision. But are you also letting me develop myself as a professional? So I think, like, especially nowadays, it's so hard to find, like, really good, like, whatever is it, salespeople, marketing people, whoever, like, on operational side. But if you will be able to deliver all the things, basically tools for making your duty, tools on learning new things, opportunity to progress, that's what really make impact, like long-term impact. So I just kind of, like, trying to a bit from my side to summarize the topic of this meeting. So investing in this will really give you long-run results. And especially when companies have to think nowadays, should I kind of stop, postpone, hesitate with all these investments or cutting these investments? That can make negative impact if not do, or positive if you will really do.
Sure. And let me say one thing, Tim, that, stop, hesitate. What about look for, right? Look for those innovative products out there that will bring your teams to the next level so that you can really conquer the competition. I mean, nobody asked for the iPhone, right? Nobody asked for the PC. Nobody asked for these things, but smart companies saw them coming out, looked for those products, got started with those products, and headed off the competition. So, I think, I definitely agree with you that, that is a death knell for a company when you start cutting out things instead of looking for ways. Hey, maybe you have to make some cuts in the organization, but, to cut out innovative tools and innovating your processes, that's a death knell.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's really good points, but I believe our guests would probably also have some questions that would add even more interesting ideas to this conversation. So please feel free to unmute yourself, ask questions. You can just send in chat box. So thank you very much for joining this time out. I really hope this conversation was interesting for you. And I really hope it was just, like, not only brought interesting ideas, but also wasn't that boring. We'll also send you recordings after this webinar. And again, let's connect on LinkedIn. Let's discuss topics. If you have some questions, you can reach to me or to Michael, and we can continue discussion. So, like, stay tuned about our next sales timeouts. And happy Easter, and have a great sales and business development, even on this crisis times.
And Tim, thank you so much for inviting me. And I just want to say one last word before we end, and that is peace.